Welcome to Science Goes to the Movies, a look at the stories of science and how they change our culture. I'm Lisa Beth Kovetz. On October 15th, 2020, in the season 3 premiere of Star Trek Discovery, Commander Michael Burnham arrived alone in the year 3188. In the very next episode, the cast and crew of Discovery followed, and we got to see our favorite tech-savvy characters stumble through 900 years of scientific advancement like medieval merchants trying to decipher a smartphone. And one of the most exciting fictional advancements they found is something called programmable matter.
What just happened?
That's the retrofitted programmable matter.
Reddit called it Star Trek's newest use of Handwavium, but in real life, here and now, this year at the City University of New York, Professor Vinod Menon, one of our favorite guests, is working on making it so. Vinod, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure to be back.
In real life, what is programmable matter?
So the idea of programmable matter really started in the context of computer science back in the early 90s. And now if you think about programmable matter, it can be anything where one can take subcomponents, small objects, which will all come together to create a larger object, which will have a functionality that can be controlled by these individual entities. So you're programming these individual entities to create this bigger functionality. So that's really what programmable matter. So in a very naive sense, even your 3D printer is in some sense a programmable matter because you're really programming something on the computer and then it's giving out this object. But right now, once you print it, you have that object and that's it. But what would be ideal is if you could take that object and then say, oh, now I don't want it to be in this shape, I want it to be in this color, and I can reprogram it to be that new color or shape or whatever it might be.
That's very much what we're seeing on Star Trek. I mean, writ large and changing atomically. So are you making this? Are you a visitor from the future?
Not exactly, because our programmable matter is emulating a phenomena or something that we find in nature, which is not easy to simulate using a classical computer.
So what is this natural thing that you're emulating?
A simple example of that is magnetism, right? Where the spins of the electrons in these systems have to be aligned in certain form to result in properties like ferromagnetism and so on. And the question is, can we use some other system to emulate that property? And that is what we call programmable matter in my lab. And where we are doing is we are creating these tiny objects which simulate the spin of an electron. So these are not electrons that we play with. We're playing with something else, but that has a property that is analogous to the spin of the electron. So now we can make them interact with each other and study their emergent properties.
So the spins of the electrons cannot be controlled, but if you make something that's like an electron, then you can spin it or program it.
Exactly.
Program it anyway. Oh my God.
So the point being that you can control the spin, but it's hard to study the spin property when it is a large collection of electrons and spins. Whereas what we are doing is we're using light and a combination of light and matter to emulate this phenomenon.
Vinod and his team at the Laboratory for Nano and Microphotonics is approaching programmable matter from an angle that should thrill filmmakers everywhere, because like most filmmakers, the underlying basis for his work is light. So why use light?
Light on its own would not do the trick that easily, because light doesn't interact with light easily. As I've once mentioned in one of our previous episodes, lightsabers never clank, right? Should not clank. But, of course, in movies, they do clank. But the biggest problem being that two particles of light do not like to talk to each other that much. And the thing that we do is to combine light with matter. So we make a quasiparticle, a particle that has properties of both light and matter. And what we do is we take the best of both worlds. We make light, because light travels fast, light has got long-range properties like coherence. And then we combine that with the matter, which likes to talk to each other. And that's why we have electronic circuits. Electrons love to talk to each other. And so we now combine the properties of both and try to now emulate these, like, for example, the spin properties of electrons.
Are you making lightsabers?
We're not making lightsabers yet, but we'll keep you posted if that happened in the lab. But what we do is we do make photons talk to each other.
You make the photons talk to each other by creating quasiparticles. So are there different kinds of them? How long do they last if you made them?
Yeah, so a very good question. Quasiparticles are particles that do not really exist in nature, but you're really creating them by hybridizing two processes. For example, in this case, electromagnetic radiation and some excitations in the matter, electronic excitations in the matter. It could also be between electromagnetic radiation and vibrations in a lattice or a molecule. So any kind of material excitation combined with an electromagnetic radiation results in these hybrid quasiparticles of the kind that I'm talking about. In fact, there is a term for them. They're called polaritons.
So they're quasi because they're half light, half matter, and they're manufactured by you.
Well,
That's extraordinary.
I don't know if I would use the word manufacture, but we realize them in the lab. And the way we realize them is by shining light on an object, and we put the matter, this material excitation, inside two mirrors. And what happens is the light goes in, it bounces between the two mirrors, and it keeps talking to this matter. And then because it does so many bounces, and because the matter keeps absorbing the light and re-emitting it, for somebody who's sitting outside, you think of this as a single entity, where the light bouncing back and forth and the matter that is sitting inside, it's hard to distinguish which state it is in. Is it absorbed the light or has it emitted the light? So that's why we call it a quasiparticle, because it's half light, half matter in that sense.
I almost hate to ask this because the answer is so obviously yes, but are you a traveler from the future bringing astonishing technology to our time in order to save the human race? You just so clearly are. I feel silly asking. That's just
please, Elizabeth, it's not. What we're doing is really just scratching the surface of an emerging technology that is going to come about in the future, and it's going to really happen. And that's what now is widely known as the quantum revolution, or the second quantum revolution. So quantum mechanics is one of the most fascinating topics, subjects in physics. And it has a lot of things that catches the attention of the public, like the spooky action at a distance and things like that. And if you take all the technology that we know today, like the computer or the internet and lasers, all of these technologies that have revolutionized our society has at its basis laws of physics. A lot of these transistors and all of these that are there in the electronic circuits use physics to operate, but they're still classical. When I say they're classical, they're still using hundreds of electrons or hundreds of photons to do their functionality. But the second quantum revolution that we are embarking on as a society is one where we're going to use these weird aspects of quantum mechanics. The fact that the photon can go through two different slits at the same time, for example. Those properties. So that's where we are working towards, and there's a huge emphasis globally in this topic for applications ranging from computing powers, being able to compute proper things that are very complicated, to cryptography, where security becomes an important aspect, to sensing, where you can sense tiny magnetic fields and so on with these quantum properties. So we are embarking on this new era of technology where these quantum properties will become important and will be utilized for the functionality.
You said quantum revolution, and that I just and change, and I can't help thinking about the Industrial Revolution and change. Are we at the same point in development as we were when we first started to realize that if you spun a magnet, you could produce your own electricity?
I would say we are a little bit ahead of that, because the principles of quantum mechanics were identified way back. What was the problem was implementing them in an experimental setting was not easy, and there was a big technological leap that needed to happen before we could implement this in a lab setting. So the theoretical concepts existed to a large extent, but the experiments have only started coming up. And in fact, now companies like Google and IBM and so on are all investing in this technology because there is a practical path towards it.
Right, and everybody wants to be Westinghouse.
Exactly.
Should I be saving up for the MacBook Q, or are we looking at a more gigantic scale of programming changes?
Right now, the way it is all functioning is because of the cloud nature of things, everything being on the cloud. What's happening is you have these large quantum computers sitting at one location, and you can actually submit programs on the quantum computer to do problems. So we're not looking at a, home computer type application right now. It's all, it's going to sit somewhere because you need to cool these things down to really low temperatures and so on. And that's where it is right now. I'm not saying that, 25, 30 years down the line where we will be is a different question, but at least as of today, the quantum computers that have been built by people like Google and IBM are all operating at very low temperatures. So you can right now apply for a program, you can submit a program to one of these computers and solve them. But yeah, it's not going to be like a laptop as of, at least not in the next 10 years or 15 years. Yeah.
Science fiction is always looking to the extremes for the new, great or terrible world for a story to live in, but still, not many writers have dipped into the second dimension. However, in season 1, episode 11 of The Orville, Seth MacFarlane flies his ship into two-dimensional space using a quantum bubble that protected everyone inside the Orville, but probably destroyed everything around it.
If I don't, we're not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to keep the field stable. You're a smart guy. I trust you.
And for that episode, the show's designers imagined a 2D space that looked a lot like a circuit board made of light, which was cool. But in real life, real lab working physics, are things happening in 2D?
Yes. In fact, that's been one of the biggest breakthrough material in the context of material science. I would say one of the biggest breakthroughs that have happened in the last 10 years has been or more than 10 years, has been the discovery of these new class of materials that are truly two-dimensional. So the simplest example is what's called graphene, which is a sheet of carbon atoms that is just one atom layer thick, but it's a sheet. And this discovery of graphene led to a Nobel Prize and has led to a wide set of discoveries after that. And now there are other classes of materials called other two-dimensional materials, which have semiconducting properties, superconducting properties, and so on. So it is real. There are these 2D materials, and they exhibit a lot of very interesting physical properties, ranging from electron mobilities and conductivities to very good light emission properties.
It all sounds so extraordinarily advanced, but I understand that some of your work gets done with Scotch tape.
Yes, that's right. So the thing that led to the discovery of graphene was actually the fact that one could take a crystal of graphite. Graphite is when you use a graphite pencil and draw on on a piece of paper. You see this grayish thing that has a little bit of sheen. That's graphite. That's several layers of graphene there, right? And so you can take a crystal of graphite, and then you can take a Scotch tape and stick it to it, and then you peel it off. When you peel it off, what happens is these layers come apart. And in the case of graphite, each layer of these carbon atoms are held together by a force called van der Waals force that's not very strong. So what Scotch tape is essentially doing is it's actually removing these layers off. And then if you do that a few times, you can end up with just one sheet of carbon atom.
Wow.
Right. And so it's just not the carbon. There are other materials that we use as well. And so all of these are realized in the lab to get this truly two-dimensional form using the Scotch tape technique. It's a good time to invest in 3M stocks or, where I'm just kidding. It's the fact that you can use Scotch tape and good hands and practice. You can realize a lot of these materials. So I often joke that this field of using Scotch tape has actually democratized the field of material science, because even a small lab with good students, with good hands, can actually embark on this topic, because all you need to do is buy the crystal, take Scotch tape, and it's a standard technique, and you can get these really good uniform monolayers of material.
Yeah, when we hang up, I'm going to try it.
Yes, we're going to send you some Scotch tape. This is a slight trick.
I got.
No, there's a slight trick about the kind of Scotch tape you want to use, because the regular Scotch tape might leave a little bit more residue, so you want to kind of get around it. So
good to know.
Small tricks of the trade, but otherwise, yeah.
Another fascinating vision of the 2D world is the 2007 film Flatland, based on an 1884 science fiction novella by Edwin A. Abbott. And in Flatland, the geometric characters are told, configuration makes the man. In the movie, the axiom was meant to limit the characters' advancement, but in real life, physicists from MIT experimenting with 2D sheets, misaligning or twisting them, discovered that these new 2D configurations not only changed the properties of the 2D matter, but created new properties. So what is twistronics?
Very good question. So this is the next phase of the 2D material research. So all the initial work, as I mentioned, was just trying to get these monolayers and then studying or these atomically thin layers and then studying their properties. But soon people realized, and it was theoretically predicted, that if you take two of these 2D layers and you twist them with respect to each other, then you create some emergent properties. And the basis of this is the fact that these 2D materials, at least most of these materials that we're talking about here, have a hexagonal lattice, which means that it's a bunch of hexagons that are periodic arrangement of hexagons. Now, you take two of these hexagonal periods and you start twisting with respect to each other, and you get what's well known as the Moire pattern. So you get like a super pattern on top of these hexagons. And these Moire patterns, essentially what it does is it creates, for the electrons in these materials, it creates certain locations where the electrons prefers to stay and certain locations where the electrons don't like to stay. This super pattern that we created between these two. Now, if you do the twisting, and what is fascinating about it is this whole property of where the electron wants to sit and how it wants to behave on this in these two layers depends on the twist angle between them. When I say twist angle, how does one hexagon rotate with respect to the other hexagon, right? Of the two atomic of these two layers. And so when we twist it, you end up getting this super mode or the super structure where now the electrons have different properties. And the most fascinating discovery out of this was the fact that by twisting it to a certain specific angle, you can get superconductivity. So these two sheets by themselves do not show this property. You put them on top of each other, and at some random angle, they don't show this property. But you get to this one magic angle, and in fact, it was called the magic angle. It is called the magic angle. You get this emergent property called superconductivity, and it is, and it also shows a whole set of other properties. So essentially, this twisting has become like a palette, where depending on the twist angle, you can get different physical properties that come out of it.
Oh.
So twistronics can be thought of as a way of controlling the material response. It can go from an insulator to a superconductor by just changing this twist angle. So you're controlling the eventual optoelectronic response just by tuning the twist angle.
Okay, so but that's all happening on a flat. What happens if you can you then pull them off the flatness? Can they?
So that brings us to something slightly different. So twisting is all done mostly in the same plane. They're both lying flat, and then you're twisting. But a second feature of 2D materials is because they're 2D and they're so thin, you can easily apply strain. Right? So imagine I have a piece of paper and I put this rod underneath, right? It bends easily. But if this was too thick, then I couldn't do this with this pen underneath. I couldn't bend it.
Right.
What happens now is by introducing the strain, your 2D material wraps around like a tablecloth on a table. And these edges have a lot of strain on them. And the strain also changes the properties of the electrons and how they behave with light, and the electronic properties also gets modified. So strain is another thing. So like twistronics, one can also consider something called straintronics, where now you use strain as a way to modify the optoelectronic response.
Wow. Well, I think we can all really, in the pandemic and the quarantine, I think we're all feeling the change of strain. So
yes, exactly. So this is another positive aspect of the strain.
but let me just make sure that I understand this. In the 2D realm, applications of physical properties like strain or a change in configuration like twist can alter matter without any of the mixing and stirring of classic chemistry, like a desired reaction or functionality like superconductivity can be achieved by changing the shape of the object. Am I getting that right?
You're absolutely correct. You got it. So unlike traditional material science, where people have to change the actual material property by changing the atoms or something like that, here we are taking two systems which are the basic building blocks and so these are like Legos.
Wow, yeah. But the thing is that paper that you used as the example, this was still a piece of paper when it sat on top of it, but you're saying that it becomes something else when it goes like from this to this.
Exactly. So what happens is because it bends, the electrons or the carriers that emit light tend to like to go down to that point where the maximum strain is introduced. Because where the maximum strain is introduced, becomes like a minimum, like a well, for it to collect all these electrons and these things called excitons, which emit light.
So light is crazy exciting.
I would say light is crazy exciting, but what really excites me is the fact that light combined with matter makes it really exciting to me, because that's where you can tap into the potential of both. So for example, the 2D materials on its own are matter, right? And we've got all these fascinating material properties. But then when you combine them with light, you get the best of both worlds. Yeah.
Lightsabers.
You can create lightsabers, exactly.
Your lab is already generating some serious progress. So if you could, and I understand that you can't, but if you could see into the future, like say, just like 50 or 25 years, how do you think, how would you pontificate that these discoveries about life might change our real lives?
As I mentioned, this second quantum revolution that we are on right now is really going to open up a whole set of application areas that we haven't even conceived of. Right? As of today, all we know is it'll change security, it'll change sensing, it'll change computing, solving molecular structure and things like that. But there might be applications that we haven't even thought of. And so, but I do think that given the pace at which globally this race is on for these quantum computing, we will be at a point where it is going to have an impact on the common man. And
Sure.
it won't just be a scientific curiosity.
You know, the last time we had you on the show, we made a joke that you were a superhero saving cameramen who were being thrown off the roof of the Graduate Center here at CUNY. And that was funny, but really, truly, a lot of this work is happening at the City University of New York. What's CUNY's role in the world of quantum mechanics?
CUNY has made a lot of contributions to quantum physics in the past. City College has had some pioneers in the field of quantum mechanics, and we are hoping to continue that tradition. In fact, one of the first quantum computing courses, to my knowledge, offered in the United States was at City College in 1997. That's actually at the birth when ideas of quantum computing were just starting to emerge. And so from that point on, there's been several contributions, and we are continuing that. And we've just received some large grants from the Federal National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, Department of Defense, to pursue these directions. There's also the CUNY Photonics Initiative, which has also helped bring a lot of really good people on board. And that's actually helped us jumpstart these efforts much more, if I may say, boldly at the national level.
Yeah, you got to keep those grants coming because you got to buy that special Scotch tape.
Exactly. We need to buy the Scotch tape and feed the graduate students.
That's right. That's what keeps the science going.
Exactly. Our science is only as good as our students. And we've been so lucky to have such amazing students. But we are also been successful in getting a few large grants from the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, and so on, and the Army Research Office to fund these kind of quantum computing or quantum information processing applications across CUNY. And at City College, we have at least two large grants on this topic right now.
You know, over the years, you have been so generous to me and to CUNY TV, answering our questions about the science of light. And I've often wondered about your thoughts on the aesthetics of light and what, as a young man, drew you to this particular part of physics.
Yeah, so that's a very, I've always thought through this. I sometimes reflect back on what got me started in this business of light. And the thing that comes to my mind is my early days of, I think I was in 5th or 6th grade, where one of the science projects I did was I took a shoebox and I drilled 2 holes and I put a bunch of mirrors inside, and I wanted to see if I could bounce the light around and come back. So basically I made a box to trap light. And now, after n number of years, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm making boxes which will trap light, and I'm trying to modify it. So nothing much has changed. I think it's just the size. I've gone from a shoebox to something much smaller, but it's basically the same idea of trapping light and then making light talk to matter more strongly. So I think it's the fascinating ideas of color, how color can be produced with structure as opposed to pigmentation, the ideas of slowing light, which has always been a fascinating idea for me. So these are the things that have really, made me pursue this thing of trying to study light and how light interacts with matter.
We're not out of time because we're going to have you back again and again, and we're going to talk about more and more things, but it's always delightful to see you.
Thank you so much, Lisa Beth. It's been a pleasure to be again on the show, and I'm looking forward to more.